Would you like to understand what determines the market value of a man in a dating scene? Then listen to this whole video. Alright, so what do I mean with a market value? So, when you're dating, looking for a partner, you, I believe, tend to choose people to a degree based on their value, their perceived value. Now, what determines a person's value, like a potential partner's value? Well, to a degree, it stems from what you like in the person, but I do think a large part of it stems from the market value. Like, how do other people perceive the person? Or what's the supply of the person? Demand supply. So I'm talking in sort of typical economic terms, the value of a commodity, of a good, whatever, is determined by the supply and the demand of the good. And if we apply this concept to humans in the dating scene, I think the same mechanics, the same forces apply. So a person would be more valuable if there is a higher demand for the person, and they would be more valuable if the supply of the person would be lower. If to the and with supply I mean the degree of how they supply themselves, let's say. And that could be in very different domains. That could be sexually, it could be emotionally, different things. Now, so if you want to evaluate the market value of a person, you need to think in terms of demand and supply. So what behavior indicates what level of demand and supply? Now, between men and women, I believe there is a difference in the underlying forces. Forces have the forces of demand and supply between women and men have a different degree of importance. Now, I'm talking about heterosexual relationships or heterosexual mindsets, if that exists. Okay, so let's start. Now, I think the market value of a man seems to strongly be derived from the perceived demand for the man. So I'm talking about how is the man demanded by women. So if a man is surrounded by a lot of women, not just women, but also other guys will see that this guy must be of significant value. Otherwise, women wouldn't hang around him. And not hanging around in sort of a platonic way, like a friend zone basis kind of way. I'm talking about like a flirty way. And you can tell the difference, I think, between a guy who and a girl who are sort of on a platonic friend zone kind of basis versus a flirty way. Like it's quite easy to determine that quickly in my eyes. Now, if a man is surrounded by a lot of women, like it's interesting because it means something significant. Because I believe women are often quite discriminative of who their potential partners could be. Like they won't spend time flirting with a guy who they think might not be right. So if you see a woman flirting with a guy, then it says something. It's not the same with guys. If a guy's flirting with a girl, it could be like, you don't know. But with a girl, if a girl's flirting with a guy, then it's more like, this could be a potential partner, I think. And especially if they're women, yeah, and you can quickly make an assumption of, like if women are flirting with a guy, and what also influences consequently the value of the guy is what kind of women are hanging around him. And you can quickly sort of base like a rough assumption on the market value of a woman based on her looks. Might not be representative and fully accurate or accurate at all, but I think on average it's a fair indicator of a woman's market value based on what she's wearing, and the way she holds herself, the way she carries herself. Your instincts quickly interprets that. So it's a reasonable indicator. Okay, so it's based on how many women are around the guy. Does it look like there's demand for him, and what kind of women are around him? So especially because if they're very attractive women, are typically, I'd say, more discriminative of who they hang out with because they know their own value and they say, I'm not going to settle for some subpar potential partner. I'm going to set the bar high, where I hold it, which is an adequate height of the bar, and the guys are going to have to pole vault over it, Okay. Next thing is a guy's sex count. How many sexual relationships or how many times he's had sex, I guess. I think that is also a clear indicator of a guy's market value, because it seems like there's high demand. Now, important to distinguish here, it's not the same for women. I think on average, if a woman has a high sex count, guys would not necessarily interpret it as, oh, this girl is valuable. And I made another video on this, my previous video, which you can check out, where I explain this dynamic. That a high sex count for women does not increase market value. It actually potentially decreases it. So I talked to some female friends of mine, and I once held a workshop on casual sex where we discussed it, and some people were denying that a high sex count for a guy makes him more attractive. They said, no, that's rubbish. But then a friend of mine came up to me afterwards and said, it definitely increases the desire for the market value of a guy if he knowingly has a high sex count, because it indicates he's in high demand, but also his experience, which I guess is a relevant factor. And I can tell you a story of once I was hanging out with girls, and we were talking about sex and stuff, and this was a while ago, and I said, this other girl said she was a virgin. I said, yeah, I'm also a virgin. And I felt like I was sort of flirting with these other girls, but then after I said that, it's sort of like the vibe changed. It's a relevant factor. They afterwards, don't think they were interested anymore in flirting, and yeah, which is pretty funny actually. And now, if we sort of extend this idea of basing a potential partner's market value on the demand for the person, especially for a guy, but also for girls now, I think it has to do with something about your self-esteem. If you strongly derive the value of somebody based on other people's demand for them, and I think, people always want what they can't have. And an example for that is there was some sort of meme I watched, some video of a girl saying, if she's talking to a guy who's not talking to any other girl, she's kind of interested, but whatever. But if she's talking to a guy who's simultaneously talking about another girl, then she wants him. Then she's more interested. She's intrigued, And it's that people want what they can't have, especially if he's the chance of getting the person is lower. It becomes a game then, and if we lead this on to, that's a prime example of where you base the value of somebody on the demand for the person. And I think it stems from insecurity, this, because you can't convince yourself of the value for the other person. Because if you were certain that this person, without looking at the demand for the person, was of value, you would just go for it. But if you're unsure, it's probably because you're insecure about your judgment. You don't trust your judgment. And if you were confident in a person's value, you would be able to just convince yourself and go for it, but you can't. So you have to base your judgment on other people's judgments, let's say. So I think if you're insecure, you need the confirmation of other people's demand for a guy, let's say. And I don't want to say this is for girls, I'm also talking for guys now in general. And this is what I think is the case, yeah. So I believe the more insecure a person, the more likely they are to base or evaluate a potential partner based on the demand for the partner, so the opinion of other people. And I can speak from my own experience when I was younger, like in high school, I was maybe I was interested in a girl, but my friends didn't think she was very attractive, and that completely turned me off. That completely, as in, completely like killed my sort of interest in the girl, because I thought, oh, if my guy friends don't like her, then what's the point, you know? And I was young, I was insecure. I mean, I still am to a degree, but that, you know, when in your teenage years, people are often more insecure than when they're adults, I believe. And that was a prime case of it. I was insecure, and I needed like the confirmation of my friends in order to go for a girl, or like try and like build something with a girl. But yeah, it's not a healthy thing, really. Yeah. So anyway, that was my video on the dating market, more specifically, and what determines the market value for men. So it's strongly influenced by the demand for the guy, which can be derived from like the women that hang around him, how many, and also to a degree his sex count. And I sort of explained where this value derivation of other people's demand stems from, and it's from insecurity. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about dating dynamics and also self-development and how to reduce suffering in life. So thank you for listening.